Okay, hello everybody. It is so good to be back on the Holistic Hive podcast. This is going to be, we can't call it a solo cast because it's the two of us,
right?
But it's an opportunity that we really have to chat. And also, we will share that it's been a really good experience to be doing these podcasts.
Yes, it has.
And the thing I'm impressed is obviously the depth of knowledge that people have, but also how many aspects there are within living a healthy life. And we know that, and that's why it can be so overwhelming to live, like when people hear healthy lifestyle, it's like I don't know where to start. And so we mentioned it briefly in a couple podcasts, and I'm like, okay, we got to record this because I want to get back to basics. I want to get back to priority within the body. And so when we look at the body, can you give me good we call it the 4 rules of health, and I want you to run through those with me, if that's okay, to really help understand how our bodies are designed.
Absolutely. So the first rule, the most fundamental rule, is that our bodies are designed to heal on their own. We are self-healing organisms, which is like the coolest thing and most empowering thing that we can talk about.
And if we just pause there and just like let that land, it's like your body's designed, created to heal and repair itself. And that is powerful beyond measure. And no one can take that from you.
No. Whatever freedoms you're enjoying, that's one that it can't be stolen, which is great. In order for our bodies to do that, though, to heal and to live this healthy lifestyle, it has to follow a very precise program. And to be totally honest, it's our nervous system, brain, spinal cord, all the nerves that are throughout the entire body that run that program. Much like a computer command center or Houston for NASA, right? It runs the show. And as long as brain and body and everything's connected and talking the way it should, everything works. We have no aches and pains for sure, no symptoms, no health problems. And that's normal. Because again, we're designed to heal and function normally. Unfortunately, life likes curveballs. And it can throw stress, and when that stress is overwhelming, that's when our bodies break down. That communication between brain and body really starts to falter. And I like to think of it like static on the line. It's not that the message isn't getting through, or some of the message isn't getting through usually, but it's not clean, it's not clear, and you can certainly miss a few words that can completely change the meaning. And that's when the body starts to break down and that program starts to fail. And so we know to return back to health, to return or even just grow into health, let's be honest, we have to reconnect the body. And when I say reconnect, I mean first and foremost reconnect the nervous system, because that's going to lead to all the other organ systems and parts of the body working better as well.
And we look at this, so we say master command center, so brain, spinal cord, all the nerves that come from the spine that control and regulate every single part of your body. Every aspect of your body has a nerve in order to be healthy and to be functioning. And we look at this as well. We have questions of the week, and the question this week is, how fast does a nerve fire? It fires at 300 miles per hour. Like, that is incredible to realize that it is faster than I can even snap my fingers, that your body is literally bringing in information, having to analyze that information, make decisions on that information, then send it back out. And so what we're looking at is, if brain is not able to communicate with body, then that's the start of dis-ease. When your body's out of ease, out of balance, out of harmony, given that state long enough, then we start to see disease. But one thing we even were talking about yesterday that I love that it came back up is, let's talk about coordination.
Yeah.
Coordination within organs, because, and I'll give the example of someone has some health issues and they really can't explain them, so they go to the medical doctor, they start getting all this testing, and they say, well, this organ's functioning properly, this organ's functioning properly, because that's what medicine does, is that they look at one organ and how is it functioning. And so now you have someone who says everything is clear, there's no reason, but I'm still not as healthy as I want to be. How could you explain that, and what coordination really means when it comes to the nervous system?
So coordination is simply everything working together, right? And so I love the example of digestion and the stomach in particular. So we eat food. From the moment that food, honestly, we think of the food, nervous system's kicking in, getting our stomach ready to break down that food. And so we swallow, we chew, we swallow, and stomach produces acid, starts contracting, does its thing. But then it has to go somewhere, right? Like it's not in the body yet. The body can't use any of those nutrients yet. It's got to pass it on to the next organ, which in this case is small intestine. But liver has to work, pancreas has to work, gallbladder has to work. All of those other organs have to be there and they have to be doing their job for that whole system to work. So if, say, stomach passes that food along too quickly, small intestine's not ready to receive it, you get backed up. And it just doesn't work right. Likewise, stomach keeps making acid long after the food's gone. Now we have acid reflux, right? So looking at organs individually is very helpful when you're learning how the body works. I honestly, it's not taught in elementary school, but I kind of see it as an elementary level
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
of anatomy and physiology. To take it a step further, how do systems work together, and then how do those systems lead to an organism working together? And the biggest breakdown we see day to day in people's health is not so much the organs, maybe not even so much the systems, but the coordination of all of those things working together. If the heart's not pumping blood to the muscles aren't going to work. And obviously there's a million examples throughout the body, but it has to be coordinated. It has to be a timely thing that everything's pulling in the same direction, and obviously we want that direction to be health.
Right. And the thing that organizes that coordination is the nervous system. Like
Absolutely,
that's why when we say master command center, I think sometimes when we look at it as a coordination, I had someone describe the nervous system is like the Philharmonic Symphony. It's like in the conductor is who knows everything and every little part and every little place and note where they should be. And when it's done in coordination, it's beautiful music. But when things are out of coordination or uncoordinated properly, it's like literally you hear people warming up and it's just it's noxious to the ears is a good way to say it. But you look at it in our body sense and go, same thing can happen. Is that coordination is beautiful and it's healing and it's function at its very best. But when things are uncoordinated, a lot of times they can't always figure out why it's happening in a medical realm. And because the individual systems are there and the individual organs are working and everything else, but we now step back and say, okay, well, the nervous system is what controls everything, and is it communicating properly? So then the next question I lead into is obviously we're chiropractors. We make that very clear from the very beginning. How are we different than the traditional medical doctor who's going to assess and do physical exams like a general practitioner? What is it that we're looking for that's different than what they're looking for?
The biggest difference I see, honestly, can be summarized in 3 words: cause versus effect. And chiropractors, we like to joke, DC is our initials after our name, it's doctor of cause. Because we really want to see that underlying, what's leading to the symptoms, what's leading to these problems, not just what are the problems. Where medicine, and it's a very logical approach, I don't want to ever throw medicine under the bus, but they're looking at the effect. Oh, you're throwing up.
Yep.
That's not normal, so let's deal with throwing up. Makes sense, a great starting place, but the problem with it is no one ever asks the question, why are you throwing up? At least in the medical realm, they typically don't ask that. And so they'll give you a pill or they'll do something that causes you to stop throwing up, which is great and wonderful, you feel better, but whatever was causing it's still festering. And let's say it was food poisoning, that bacteria is still growing and expanding, the immune system's still having to fight it off. Like your body can't ignore this. You just took away one of its main compensations though. And so you're actually making it harder for the body in that case. And that, again, both are very logical. It's just what direction are you looking? And then the outcomes do change a little bit. If I'm on the last leg, like I'm in a car accident, something serious has happened, I'm about to die, I don't give a crap about causes.
Right.
I want to deal with the effects, keep me alive, please. But if I'm fine, I'm relatively functional and not really sick, I want to grow health. And I can't, there's nothing wrong with me, there's no effect. So I can't focus on the effects, then I have to focus on what causes health. And that's where chiropractors are really good at, is we can not only prevent, but really move things towards true and optimal health.
One thing that I've heard recently that is being worded is we say we're preventative, but also the word I like is prepare. That when your nervous system is able to communicate properly within your body, you are prepared to engage in your life, because the whole purpose of our nervous system is to be able to adapt to its environment. We get cold, our body responds. We get warm, our body responds. We have a stressful situation, our body responds. We have times of healing, repair, relaxation, our body responds differently. And we look at all those as really good examples, and a lot of people don't understand and go back to coordination. That all is regulated without us thinking a thought about it. But what we do know, and one thing we said, is when stress is too much for our body to deal with, that's when it breaks down.
Absolutely.
So let's spend a little bit of time about talking about the 3 main sources of stress and what can be done about them.
Okay.
And so let's start with mental emotional, because that's the one that is actually the last one that's thought of. Most people think of physical, they think of the traumas. Most people can start thinking about what they're eating, what they're taking into their body, but the mental emotional is kind of that missed one, but yet I will say it's the bigger one. It's the biggest contributor to health and the biggest contributor to sickness. So can you take it a little bit further?
So, well, just to start out with how big it is. Most of my training and learning, we were talking about the 3 through chiropractic school and even beyond, is mental emotional is about 80 to 90% of what causes breakdown, which I find fascinating. Yeah. And it fits right into the whole idea that the power of the mind is so powerful, good and bad, unfortunately. And so it's very much one that, say an emotional event happens in your life. It's stressful, you're really emotional. And if you can process it, is great. You know, you may be crying, you have some outlets, but you're processing through it. You don't break down from that. Right. It's when it's that overwhelming, I'll pick loss of a spouse or something like big, and it doesn't have to be big, but it's overwhelming, right? What your body does with that stress is it deals with what it can, and it stores the rest. It's really a protective survival mechanism. It is like, well, hopefully one day I can unpack this, but right now it's too much. Shove it in the storage closet. Yep. And the storage closet of the body is the musculoskeletal system. Well, it can be really any part of the system, but we see it a lot in the muscles, in the connective tissues, and all of those are going to pull on the skeletal system. And it stores it there, and it carries it into the future. The problem with carrying it into the future is it's not appropriate in the future. Right. It was appropriate at the time, but now it's no longer serving you, but it got stored so well that the body's lost its ability to really process and deal with it on its own. And there's a lot of modalities that can get in there and help with that process, but the whole time you're storing it, you're not functioning normally. And so even if that just means it's a tight muscle, it's never just a tight muscle. That tight muscle is going to be pulling on bones, it's going to change your posture, it's going to change the nerves that are protected by those bones, it's going to change the way the organs work. It's this huge cascade that really, it even affects hormones, it affects everything in the body, all because we're storing something we couldn't deal with. And it started in mental emotional.
I look at mental emotional as, I love to use the example of good stress, because we know that stress can be good. That's short-term stress. The example I always love to give is, say a bear comes into the room, we should respond to that stress. Our eyes should dilate, our heart rate should go up, our blood should actually leave our digestive system and go to our heart, to our arms and legs, so we can either fight the bear or we can flee from the bear. That is normal, that's healthy, that's your sympathetic fight or flight response. What we're seeing though is we talk about, you mentioned death of a loved one as a good example. We know that the amount of stress of a birth is also equal to that. So I think it's really important to start saying it's like in great tragedy and in wonderful moments of bringing life, it's actually still the same amount of stress that the body perceives. But what we now know, and the bigger concern, is when you hold on to that stress. Even if it's a low level stress, you don't have to have something big like that happen, but it's a low level stress. Say society's gone crazy, say there's tons of fear in the world, say that we've made it so that you are afraid of other people for a long period of time, you're afraid to leave your home. It's like we look at all these fear, like fear is such a good example and we're right in it. But what that does is that long-term stress, you're now carrying something. And the way I like to say that is you're running from the bear for a long period of time, and you're running so long that you can't stop to go, like you can't stop to sleep because it's survival. You're running from the bear. You can't stop to eat. You definitely can't stop to sleep to repair. But the biggest one I'd like to say, especially with our pregnant moms, you can't stop and have a baby because it'd be unsafe to bring a baby into that environment. And so we talk about the fact that the nervous system has your sympathetic, has your parasympathetic. It has more than just that as well. Those are the places to start. It's a good, simple way to start. But it's so important to understand that mental, emotional stress is the biggest contributor. And what an adjustment will do, the way that I like to describe an adjustment is like a reboot to a computer. My computer makes me mad, I'm going to hard shut that sucker down. And I'm going to hope and expect that it reboots back to normal because it has systems in it to reboot back to what it knows. When an adjustment happens in the nervous system, what we see is that the nervous system is now able to reboot and function properly. But there's also ways to biohack. There's ways to help with vagal tone, with humming, meditation, deep breathing exercises, movement. So it's like we want to share those. Those are in addition to, and to help your body come to a place of centeredness while you're also clearing out these long stressors that have been packed and inappropriately packed and carried within the body, and that's preventing your body from functioning as best.
Absolutely. And you'll see as you listen to this podcast, most of the people we bring on, whatever they do shifts you into parasympathetic, which is that rest, digest, heal mode, right? And it's because we don't need help getting into the sympathetics. We don't need help with fight or flight. Right? Like that's just, it's shoved down our throats at every turn. Even flashing lights driving by can do that to you. And it probably should do that to you. But like everyone we're really working with, and our main focus more times than not is to get you out of the fight or flight, out of sympathetic dominance and into a parasympathetic dominant, rest and digest dominant, because we're not seeing that. Like it's almost a skill that's being lost. It's really one, and I'll bring up when we interviewed Kim, and she's talking about meditation and doing it in her own life. Well, she's got young kids, and so you look at that of going like time and place. It's really one of going, well, I should be doing it more often. Let's get rid of the word should, because it's really one when we do the best we can. It would be great if we can do meditation every single day. What I'd love to say as well is what can we do on a regular basis that brings in habits that help build us up, but also help us connect. And so I look at this of going, a lot of times as parents, can we model this behavior to our kids? Yes, absolutely. Can we show them skill sets? Yes. And the more regular you are with it, sometimes just stopping and taking a deep breath of air and letting your kids see that is powerful for you, for them, and to understand that we really do need balance in our nervous system. We need to be able to have times to rest, digest, heal, and repair, and we need times of stress, but most importantly, we need to be able to have that adaptability between the two. Absolutely. Okay, so that's mental, emotional. Go, keep on going. No, I was going to head right into number two. So number two is more the chemical side of things. The way I like to think of this is what goes into the body, how does the body use it, and what comes out of the body. And so whether that's, I'll just stick with the bad stuff, right? Whether that's junk food, whether that's toxic air, toxic body products, all of those things. But if it's an overwhelming stress, it shuts things down, and it totally can shift you into that fight or flight again. So even though fight or flight is more of a mental, emotional thing, it's a risk. It's nervous system response is really the best way to put it. It's not a mental, emotional thing. It's a response to an overwhelming stress, and the chemical side of things is one that's actually easy. Yes. It's very tangible. Right. That you can switch your life around. You can clean up the cleaning products in your home. You can clean up your bath body products. You can clean up what you allow. You can buy filters. You can, whether it's for water or air or whatever. Or both. We recommend both. Right. And so, and I'll say this, like to give you some, like what can I do right now is first of all, get rid of any product in your home that smells really, really good. Like that artificially smells really good, get rid of it because it has chemicals in it. Yeah. And so honestly, my recommendation, what I've done is I found a company, I work through an essential oil company is what I do, and that has worked really well for me. I just purchase like all my home products through them because I can get laundry soap, I can get the cleaning products, I can do all that, and I know 100% of it is clean, organic, healthy. And what I had learned was that I let convenience just sneak things in. And so now I'm very conscious of going, no, make it convenient. Like everything's online, make it convenient. But when we talk about the air we breathe, the food we eat, it's something we do have control over. And we understand things are harder now than they've ever been.
So again, have grace. Like, I love the 80-20 rule of really focus on 80% of your life. You're dialing it in, you're conscious, you're really there. Because I also firmly believe life is meant to be enjoyed and celebrated and experienced. And however that looks for you, the last thing I'd want is for someone to be waiting to live their life until everything's perfect. And like you said, this is the one that can be detoxed a little bit easier, but it can also have massive consequences. We talked about with Meredith about cycles, and she mentioned, I love that she went there, maybe some estrogen dominance. Well, not maybe a little, we're seeing massive estrogen dominance, not only in females, but in males, because of the plastics and the cleaning products and the beauty products. And so that's something we have to be a lot more cognizant of.
Oil-based products really
Yes.
is what, because it all comes back to the similar chemicals in petroleum products. But I also, you were kind of touching on this, to really get true wellness, these 3 stressors, or 3 areas, we haven't gotten over number 3 yet, but need to be in balance or in coordination. I want to bring that word back again, because if you spend all of your time focusing on mental emotional, because we said that's the big one, and it is, but if you spend all of your time, you're going to be neglecting the other 2. If you spend all of your time focusing on the chemical, you're going to turn into that crazy health nut that's at Whole Foods all the time. Love those people. But they're
not experiencing life like they could.
They're neglecting the other areas. Honestly, a piece of chocolate cake, not the best thing for you chemically, but if psychologically you're celebrating something, you can have more benefit in mental emotional than the detriment in the chemical.
And or the opposite is like people who will eat something, they're beating themselves up mentally, emotionally the whole time. It's like, oh my heavens, that's the worst thing you could be doing. So it is. It's like, I love that you bring back that word coordination, because it really is one of going, these all have to fit together to really be part of a healthy lifestyle. Okay, so we hit mental emotional, we hit chemical. What's the next one?
Next one is physical or trauma. This is the one most people come to chiropractors for, because that's how we marketed for decades. And but it's the car crashes, it's the falling off the horse, it's the falling out of a tree, falling off the trampoline. No, it's fall.
Right. Sporting injuries.
Sporting injuries, absolutely.
Or overuse.
But there's a physical impact typically to the body. And that can absolutely cause damage. We know that. Break bones, tear things. I mean, but again, overwhelming stress, the body's going to protect. A protective posture is always curled in, hunkered down, be in that protect mode. And if we get stuck in that, I've known a number of individuals. They were in a car crash and significant trauma to the neck. And it completely changed their personality because they're constantly guarding and protecting from another trauma. They essentially, the car crash trained their system to always be on guard. And they give up. Give up the parasympathetic to go into protect, survive mode. It served them at the time, but it doesn't continue to serve past the event.
And the biggest difference here between us and traditional healthcare is what I'll say, allopathic care, is that in allopathic care, you're in a car crash, we're going to make sure you're not bleeding, we're going to make sure there's not a broken bone, we're going to make sure you're not going to die. And then other than that, we go, okay, your body should do its thing. And the answer is it should if there's no interference. But what we're seeing is that neglect, and I will use that word appropriately, that neglect in helping someone heal fully leaves scar tissue, it leaves damage, it leaves ligaments that are torn, that are ignored, muscles that are torn, that are ignored. And so what we do is, and that's why we're so good at trauma care, and is because we facilitate healing through the body. That's our whole purpose, is to make sure that movement is reestablished, that alignment is established, and that most importantly, nerves are able to communicate to the brain back to body, to all the muscles, to all the tissues, so now can heal and repair fully. And so that's where it's like when we say trauma, we see significant, massive improvements with what we do, because we're not just looking at, are you going to survive? Great, now you're on your own. And the answer is you don't need to be on your own. This is absolutely one that we can make sure that your body is functioning at its very best, and we're just removing interference because your body can do it.
Right. Well, and it comes back to another fundamental difference that I haven't explained, but I want to explain here. And that is, what direction are you looking? So much of our society, and certainly within the medical field, we're looking to avoid things we don't want.
Right.
I don't want that broken
Yeah.
bone. I don't want to be bleeding. I don't want cancer. I
Right.
don't want
Right.
whatever.
Absolutely.
Right? And so we spend our time trying to avoid those
Yep.
things. Again, there's some logic behind
Right.
that. But what we know is there's a huge difference between being just not sick
Yeah.
and being truly healthy. And that difference is where are you looking?
Yeah.
So I was in a really good conversation with one of my patients yesterday who has been run through the medical model, run through a lot of alternatives as well, and has benefited from both. But the entire time, it's been avoiding sickness,
Yeah.
avoiding disease. And I didn't physically do this, but I basically said, snap out of it. It's time to turn around and start focusing on things you do want. Because only when you're looking towards what you want will you actually get there. She's been running backwards this whole time, still focused on what she doesn't want,
Right.
trying to move the right direction, but you just can't run as fast
Right.
backwards.
Yep.
I told her to turn around, and it was I hope it'll be a very impactful moment for her, because she accepted it, and
Yeah.
she started that turn, and I can already, it's a day later, I can start to see some differences. I hope we carry that forward.
Well, and it goes right back to that mental emotional part. Is like we talk about the law of attraction, law of abundance, and what we've learned is the law of attraction is you get what you're looking for. So if you always see negativity in the world, well then you're always going to see negativity in the world. You're going to find it, because it's going to be there.
Right.
But if you're always looking for what's the best of the situation, the best of the day, then you're going to find that as well. And so there's a vast difference of saying I don't want to get sick versus I want to be at my healthiest. And that, I love that comes into this, because I think that's the biggest thing that we will say, that's the realm we're on. And there's lots of different chiropractors as well. And there's a lot, what we call them symptom relief chiropractors, where it's like, let's get you out of pain, let's get you feeling good, whatever that means.
Avoid those things we don't
Avoid
like.
those things you don't want. Where we're on this flip side of saying, let's get to your best. Let's get to your optimal function. Let's really, what do you want out of life? And we believe that you can have the very best life you've ever wanted, and have it now. Let's help you get there.
And you should grow healthier
Yeah.
as you age, not sicker.
And your kids should grow healthy from the beginning.
Absolutely.
We have a slogan that our goal is to raise healthy children. And I love that you said it. As adults, I'm not okay with the mindset of, well, it's just downhill after whatever. And the answer is no, I want to be healthier today than I was 5 years ago. And in 5 years, I sure as heck want to be healthier than I am even now, because I'm continuing to do all the right things that build up my health rather than react and wait to react when there's a problem.
Absolutely.
So I look at this, and we put this all together, and so I guess the thing I'll say is we come across this, and if someone has come into chiropractic and they say, well, I've heard some good, but I've also heard some bad. I'm a little skeptical. I've not really ever done this before. Like, what is the advice that you'd give someone?
Well, first off, I acknowledge you can be hurt
Yep.
from an adjustment. I have. I know you have.
I have. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Chiropractic school. Hello. We learn on each other.
And I like to, and so I'm going to pause there for a second, saying it can happen because there's massive power. I think that's where
That's
you're going
right,
anywhere.
yep.
There's massive power in an adjustment, and so that's one reason we're extremely careful, because we have been through that, of going, we never want that for a patient. Like, we acknowledge it happened to us because we're learning and we did not know what we know now, but it's really one of going, this is why we're more cautious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've taken a number of steps, and most chiropractors do. First and foremost, we actually get the training.
Yeah.
Right? And so we know that when we put our hands on a patient, we're not going to injure or harm. But it comes down to technique, it comes down to experience, it comes down to really knowing what's happening with the patient's body, and with them even, not just their body, but and then finding the time and place, finding the analysis, all of that, to where we can easily, not force ourselves in, but easily get into the system, make a small change that's going to have a massive ripple effect, and really bring their body back into that coordination, back into health.
And I look at that, of the thing that I would want in a good provider is someone who's going to ask a lot of questions, that's going to be thorough, that's really going to find out, where is my current function now? So that's one of the things I always like to say is, if you're looking for a chiropractor, honestly, like, make an appointment and talk with them first. You can call and say, hey, I just want to talk. And then I say, look at their office and what type of things are in their office. If you want to bring your kids into an office, I want an office that has kids and that's set up for kids. I want an office that's going to honestly go a little bit slower to help me understand what's going on, and so I can make a decision on my health and what's needed, rather than this mindset of let me do one adjustment and see what happens. Because we say this all the time, it's like things that you expect to change overnight, like that's not what health happens. Like we wish it did, let's be honest, we all want instant gratification, but true health and healing, permanent health and healing takes time. And so I want someone who's going to acknowledge that, appreciate that, and also give me the support systems behind that.
Well, and health and disease are not events.
Right.
They are processes. And so that feeds right into what you were saying, is it's going to take time. We need to honor that time. I think we need to plan that time appropriately so that we can get to where we actually want to be.
And I would want, what that plan is, to have like a heads up. Like, what's it going to take for time? And so understand that if someone's going to sit down with you and go over really what's going on and even paint a long-term picture for you, that's awesome. Like, that's something I'd say that's a really, really good doc, because it's really one who's saying this isn't going to be a process we're going to rush. And at the same time, understand that it's going to take some time. It took you time to get where you are. It's going to take you time to get to do repair work, first and foremost, and then get to your best health you can have. And so we look at this of going, I love to explain why we do what we do, because I think a lot of people make assumptions, and I understand that, and I love that we can say, let's just acknowledge those, and then let's work through those. And if this is the right fit, if you're looking at what can I do for my family's health, start with what we just went through. Start with really looking and analyzing how you're thinking, how you're talking, what are the mental, emotional stressors in your life. Look at what's in your home. Clean up what's in your home. Clean up what you're eating. Be conscious of what you're putting into your body, both physically and emotionally. Start doing those things now, and they will have massive ripple effects. And then find health providers that will grow your health. And that's why we put this together, is to help you have lots of opportunities to really know about many different types of providers and types of care, so we can really help grow our families to the very best health that they can have, because that's our goal, is to raise our next generation at their best. And so that, I always joke, I'm jealous of my kids because they've had chiropractic since before they were born, and I didn't at all. And I look at that going, then that is an awesome responsibility for them to be able to carry that health as well.
Absolutely.
So thanks you guys for being a part of our community. This is something that we take at a very a really revered level, because we appreciate the fact that we're able to come and help, and then to bring together such an amazing group of providers, and we look forward to continuing this as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.